All right, so we're back with part 2 of why I think you should still consider the M1 MacBook Air in 2022. To recap what I covered in my last video, I mentioned the screen on this laptop is really good, and I mean, I could open it, but just go watch the other video. The typing experience is really good. The trackpad is really good. Probably the best trackpad you'll find on any laptop, Mac. Well, yes, they're all good on the Macs, but Windows or Mac. It has good speakers. The design is a fanless design, meaning it's completely silent. USB-C for me is a reason to buy it. It charges via USB-C. Video out via USB-C is an option. And yeah, it just fits into my ecosystem of devices that have or that use USB-C. And just to give you just to show you for me how crucial that is. ThinkPad X1 Carbon charges via USB-C. Sony WH-X3M, whatever, Bluetooth headphones over here, charge via USB-C. These Pixel Buds, the case, charges via USB-C. This Sony Xperia 5 Mark III charges via USB-C. Can I get it to focus? Yeah, it focuses or whatever. There it is. And I got some other crap in here that does. And just, like the list isn't endless because I don't have an infinite number of devices. But what I do like to point out, which is this is not a video about the iPhone, but all those devices that I have, and then I have this one cable that allows me to charge them all. And then when I talk about this one device, the freaking iPhone, I have one cable for one device. Whereas I have this one cable for literally everything else that I own that isn't a smartwatch that needs to be charged. And that's not entirely true. I still have a pair of LG Tones that charges via micro USB, as well as a Kindle that charges via micro USB. But those are older devices. USB-C wasn't as ingrained back then as it is now. So with the iPhone 12, which came out the same year that this guy came out, it would have been nice if Apple had switched over to a common port, considering USB-C is on their Macs, it's on some of their iPads, I think it's on their Beats, and I think that's really all they sell. I mean, they have AirPods, which don't have USB-C yet, but they will, I think, in 2023. With the release of the iPhone 15, and I'll be curious to see how Apple hypes up USB-C when it takes it's taken them this long to actually switch over to it. So USB-C for me is definitely a reason to get this particular device. But to continue with my list of things as to why I think it's a good device still in 2022 is the battery life. I mean, the battery life on this thing is absolutely phenomenal. I mean, yeah, I don't think really I need to say much. Like on this ThinkPad, I get a couple hours, but I feel like I frequently need to remain near a charger or carry one with me in the event that I actually did leave the house with it. But this thing, I don't worry about charging it. I'll work on it, do whatever I need to do, watch videos, FaceTime. A nice thing, even though I'll hate on the iPhone all the time, you can take calls on the Mac. And I'm not talking FaceTime. I'm talking actual cellular calls on the Mac. As long as, I guess your iPhone is probably connected to the same Wi-Fi network. So what I'll do, as I mentioned before, is I'll take these headphones and connect them to the Mac instead of having to use Bluetooth headphones when talking on the actual phone. So that's a nice thing to have. And again, I was talking about battery life, but it's one thing I'm not worried about. Oh, is my Mac going to die while I'm using this feature? No, it's not. Is my Mac going to die while I'm, browsing the web or doing whatever I need to do? I mean, yeah, if the battery life is, close to zero, it will, but it takes a long time for it to actually get there. So if you're looking for a machine that has long battery life, by all means, consider really any of the M series MacBooks. But even though this is the first MacBook Air and they're probably least powerful one that they'll ever make, this, and I'd almost want to even say their least efficient one that they'll ever make, it's still a very efficient machine. So the battery life on it is absolutely phenomenal. So if you're looking for a machine with long battery life, you found one right here. All right. Now, these next two things kind of go hand in hand, and depending on your use cases, you might care, you might not care. I mean, as I just mentioned, you can answer or place or start phone calls from the Mac. If you have an iPhone, and I think the iPhone has to be on the same same Wi-Fi network. I think that's how it works. But the entire Apple ecosystem, things that you can do with other Apple products that work well with this machine. If you're already in the Apple ecosystem, it might be something to consider. Instead of your next machine being a Windows machine, you might say, well, I already have the iPhone, which personally, I use iMessage. Most people I feel use the default messaging app on their phone, Android or iPhone. And of course, there's an iMessage app on the Mac. So instead of having to type on that small screen, one of the main reasons that I even consider getting a Mac is, well, I find myself doing a lot of texting, probably more sometimes than I actually want to, but I also find myself not responding to messages either at all or as thoroughly as I want to. So let me get something that allows me to type everything out on a full-size keyboard, as opposed to on a tiny little cell phone screen with my two little thumbs. So if you use iMessage and you're considering getting another laptop, why not get something that works well with your phone? Now, before I go any further, and other ecosystem stuff, go to the website and watch. You got the iPad. You might want to, you got the iPhone. You got the Apple Watch. You got AirPods. If I'm missing something, I'm missing something. But that brings me to a point, though, that really does bother me, is that yes, the default messaging app on the iPhone is the Messages app. It's your standard SMS client. So if you want to send regular text messages, then you can do it, which we used to all do. And I want to say it was the iPhone 4 when iMessage came out. I forget. I mean, I want to say iMessage and FaceTime came out around the same time. And I know that's when FaceTime really came out because you had the front-facing camera. So that I will always say the iPhone 4 was the best iPhone ever because it revolutionized how we used our phones. Anything other than that is just an iteration of it. You might change the size of it. You might get a bigger screen, bigger battery, of course, faster, more cameras. But in terms of how we use the phone, from a hardware standpoint, I definitely feel like the iPhone 4 was the best iPhone ever made. Of all the iPhones I've ever owned, that's the one that I still keep. I don't use it, obviously, anymore. But this iPhone 12 that I currently have, I will sell that or trade it in. I have no problem getting rid of that. That iPhone 4 is something I probably will have until I die. But the point I was getting at is that, iMessage is nice. It's integrated into the standard SMS client on your phone. It works on the Mac, so forth and so forth. But as I've complained about before in other videos, in 2022 and as time progresses, the goal should be interoperability. We should be able to use apps on various platforms, and they should work equally well whether or not the app vendor is also the hardware vendor. So just think, in order for you to get iMessage or access to iMessage, what do you as a consumer actually have to do? Okay, you want to use it. Where can you use it? Well, you can use it on iOS. You can use it on iPad OS. You can use it on Mac OS. I don't believe there's any other operating systems that would allow you to use iMessage as it is intended to be used. But in order to get that one app, you have to use it on one particular or several operating systems. But those operating systems are all Apple operating systems. And then in order to get access to those operating systems, you then have to buy either an iPad, a Mac, or an iPhone. And those are all Apple pieces of hardware. So it sucks that they've locked it down so much that in order to get access to it, you have to really commit to everything that they want you to commit to, which is, yes, their app, their operating system, their hardware. And it does lead to a nice overall experience. But at the same time, it'd be nice if there was an iMessage app for Android or a Windows iMessage app or Messages for Web or something, something that allows you to say, hey, I don't really care for your hardware, but the software is cool. Or I don't, whatever. And it's interesting because as time is going on, text messaging, hopefully, or SMS at some point will be gone. And we're looking, or at least Google and some of us who use the service are looking at RCS as a means to replace SMS, Rich Communication Services. And SMS or not, whether it's SMS or just SMS or RCS, what Google allows you to do is, and in fact, I'm going to pause it. I'm going to bring it up on the screen. Hold on one second. Let me pause this. So what Google allows is this web interface. So that the issue that I was, it's not an issue. It's just the preference I have of, well, I don't like having to type on my small phone. It'd be nice if I could type on a computer with a full-size keyboard. This Messages for Web website allows you to essentially scan a QR code and, in fact, it allows you to get that typing experience on a full-size keyboard. So yeah, it allows you to get that full-size typing experience on a keyboard. And if you're doing other things on the computer, then you can quickly just say, oh, let me switch over to that tab. And then I'm able to type my messages, whatever, and then I'm good to go. So yeah, you click Messages for Web, and then you come over here to this particular screen. You'll open the app on your phone, you'll scan the QR code, and then boom, your entire text thread, everything in the Messages app, or the Google Messages app, in that thread pops up, and you're able to interact with all those people, your contacts, so forth and so forth. And for some people, this isn't that important. Yeah, it might not be anything that you actually particularly care about. For me, it is. But what's important for me is whether you use this service or not, I think it's crucial to understand that this service is available for everybody anywhere. So if you have a web browser, which Safari, Chrome, Firefox, Edge, on literally any platform, which, yeah, you wouldn't do it on a mobile device like on a phone, but if you wanted to, you could, go to this website and then you could pull up the QR code. And but the whole point, interoperability. You can do it on a Mac. I could keep this Mac and then I could start using an Android device as my primary phone. And then, I could get the same overall typing experience that I'm looking for, even though I'm not using the iMessage, even though I'm essentially not using iMessage. But interoperability. And with iMessage, I have to have this piece of hardware, or I have to have an iPad in order to get the same overall experience. And it's really unfortunate. I've ranted about Apple adopting RCS, and if that happens, maybe it will, maybe it won't. But even Google has said, hey, Apple needs to fix texting, and it sucks. Like the way that they phrase it, they make it sound like they too aren't an equal partner in it, because they are. So they've initiated, hey, RCS is a thing. It's a standard. We should all use it, so that way the messaging experience is better for everybody. And I was listening to a podcast, the Vergecast, and they were talking about whether or not they felt if Apple adopted RCS, would that actually convince some Apple users to switch? Would it improve the experience for Apple users? And I think all of them were of the mindset of no, it wouldn't. And I don't think I could disagree stronger, because there are a lot of reasons that people like the iPhone. But I think one of the reasons that most people share is iMessage. And if you're able to get that same almost exact typing experience or messaging experience with another operating system, I don't really feel like there'd be a reason for them to stick around with the iPhone. And, try the world of Android and see what other options exist aside from, what Apple wants you to have. So personally, I don't think I'd buy another iPhone if they supported RCS, because, I'd get that exact same messaging experience or close to it without, screwing up somebody's group message or whatever. And from the mindset of, that's the mindset of, well, would people leave? But also, even if you chose to not leave and Apple adopted RCS, you as an Apple iPhone owner would experience or get a better experience, because there's somebody that you communicate with that has an Android device, or there's a group message that you're a part of that has an Android device in it, or an Android user in it. If RCS were a thing that Apple adopted, that group message, or even just that one-on-one text thread, would be improved, because now Apple is supporting something that would overall improve the messaging experience for everybody. So all that to say, yes, if you use iMessage and you're part of the Apple ecosystem, then this MacBook is definitely something that that you should consider. So, the next item on my list should be a fairly quick one. I definitely go off on little rants, but it's a laptop. It's 13 inches. I don't know exactly how heavy it is. If you want to know, go to Apple's website. But it is extremely portable. I mean, yeah, I have it, just in one hand. I mean, it's all, I believe, aluminum, so it's heavier than some laptops I've ever owned. In fact, picking this up, yeah, I feel like the MacBook is definitely heavier than this 14-inch ThinkPad over here. But it's portable. It's thin. If you need to slip it into a bag or whatever, or just walking around the house or carrying it while you're doing something, yeah, it's extremely portable. So if you need something that's light enough, that's extremely thin, consider the 2020 M1 MacBook Air. Now, I think the best way to summarize this is, I think his name is Brandon. I believe his YouTube channel is This is Tech Today. So yeah, the name of it is This is Tech Today or Tech Today, one of the two. But he coined the term the delight to dollar ratio. So I summarize that as, for certain items, you'll like it, and then you'll see, okay, how much did I pay for this? So if I didn't pay a lot of money for it, but that experience was okay, yeah, that delight to dollar ratio is pretty good. It's like, yeah, it was good, and I didn't pay a lot of money for it. So, all right. But if you ended up saying, hey, this experience or this item was okay, but you paid a lot of money for it, now you're like, well, wait a minute. Okay, now I'm not satisfied with it because I did pay a lot of money. So the first time I actually purchased this MacBook was last summer, so summer of 2021. Got it on sale for $900. And I used it for, a couple of days, maybe just a day or two. And I didn't like it. Yeah, I took it back. And even though the experience was fine, I really felt like I was nitpicky. I was nitpicking over it. And I remember I was sitting there typing, and I was, just kind of brushing my thumb along the trackpad, and it just didn't feel even, like the trackpad to the rest of the frame. And I Googled it, and I was like, is anybody else having a problem with the trackpad? Is this, quality control thing for, $900? This should be an entirely flat surface, especially since the trackpad itself doesn't actually move. So yeah, I felt like I was nitpicking because of how much money I paid for the machine last year. It was brand new, no issues with it. But at that point I said, you know what? The delight to dollar ratio isn't, where I want it to be. So for $900, I returned it. And that was it. Didn't really consider buying another MacBook. I ended up buying a used Mac Mini, also with an M1 chip in it, and I used that for a little while. And the delight to dollar ratio on that, I think, was fine. For $500, I was able to get a more powerful machine, essentially. And I don't want to say more powerful, but it has a fan, it has ports, but it's not portable. So, that's what you give up, or at least what you had to give up if you wanted something that had more ports back then. And I kept it for a while, but I ended up realizing that I really wasn't using it too much, so I ended up selling that. Now, fast forward to this summer, so maybe really just 3 weeks ago at this point, and I'm looking for used MacBook Airs because at this point, the 14 and 16-inch MacBook Pros have been released. The 13-inch M2 MacBook Pro has been released. The 13-inch M2 MacBook Air has been released. So prices for these models definitely are going down. So watching a few on eBay, I ended up paying $650 for this before tax. After tax, it was a little under, or it was around $700. So for $200 less than I paid for it last year, I am finding that I am enjoying this more. Same machine that's used. In fact, there's even a dent on the. I think there's a dent right here. But because I paid less for it, the experience that I'm getting, and the experience is the same. I feel like overall I'm just enjoying it more. So if you are looking for this machine, the retail price for it, still on Apple's site in 2022, is the price that it was when it was released. So $1,000. Is the machine worth $1,000? I feel like the answer to that question is yes. I feel like yes, it is a $1,000 computer. Because if you look at a $1,000 Windows computer, you're not going to get the same experience. Now, I would say you're crazy if you do spend $1,000 on it, mainly because it's always on sale somewhere else. So even though Apple doesn't put their sales out, if you are going through their site, you have, and you happen to be a veteran, then, you have the veterans site. If you happen to be a student or an educator, you can go to their education site. If you're okay buying something refurbished, you can get it cheaper through their refurbished site. But then if you just look at Best Buy or Amazon, and because you still want to buy it brand new, you can find it for $900, sometimes even $850. But then if you're open to buying it used, considering it's been out for almost 2 years now, you can save even more money. So $650 I felt was a fair price. If I spent more time looking, maybe I could have even gotten it for a little cheaper. Maybe I could have found it for $650 after shipping and taxes. But in 2022, buying it for less than $900, I think it's a good option. I'm not going to go into why I feel like it's a better option over buying the M2 MacBook Air, because if that's what you want, then go get it. And then if I ever get one of those in my possessions, maybe I'll get, put my opinions out on that one. But yeah, watch other reviewers' opinions on the M2 MacBook Air, and you'll see that the price that you have to pay just to get something that's brand new is a lot more than this. And sometimes we're almost talking like literally twice the price if you configure that one the way that you probably should, compared to buying one of these used. And then it's not a fair comparison. It's a newer model. One's new, one's used. But even buying a new M1 MacBook Air, you're still saving hundreds of dollars compared to buying a new M2 MacBook Air. So we've reached the 21-minute mark. I think that's all I want to talk about. Overall, I think it's still a good machine. It's still a machine that you should consider. 2022, yes, it is 2 years old. How long is Apple going to support it? I don't know. But go to the website. You can see, like, for Mac OS Ventura, I think is what's supposed to be coming out later this year, what devices they still support with that one. Can kind of give you a rough estimate on how long they plan on supporting these more current machines. But even then, because Apple Silicon is now in these laptops, I think they'd probably want to support them even longer than their Intel counterparts. So yeah, it's still a good machine, and the price that you pay is important. Should you pay $1,000 for this? Absolutely not. Should you pay $900 for it? Yeah, I think that'd be fine. But can you find it for less? Absolutely. And if you're able to find it for less, and you're looking for a machine that checks all the boxes that I mentioned, and probably some that I haven't even thought about, I feel that the MacBook Air, the M1 MacBook Air, is definitely a good option.